As promised before the break, here is our look at exclusive testing of the new Special Operators helmet. It's a joint project between Defence Research and Development Canada and Cansoftcom.
Bare helmet, helmet with accessories, and then we're going to test the gaiter as well.
It's a bit of an unusual sight on a Canadian military base. Two scientists walking with the form of a head.
I'm going to leave it on, just lower it.
Project lead Simon Ouellette and defense scientist Benoit Genet are here for a blast test of their helmet prototype.
So we have the location fixed now with the head form. So the orientation of the head form gives us an impact on what we call the front boss location on the helmet. And the velocity gate is adjusted so that it picks up the velocity right before impact. And now we're going to adjust the height of the head for the severity of the drop.
First, we're at the biomechanics lab for some smaller scale testing. Underneath that helmet is the form head and jelly-like brain loaded with sensors that Simon showed us earlier in the show.
Let's try this.
Today, we'll see how the helmet fares in several different tests, including if attaching a simple neck gaiter could help ease blowbacks from an explosion.
Ready? Yep. Okay, drop in 3, 2, 1.
The initial quick tests are for impacts, simulating blunt force trauma.
This is the first of two types of impact that we do on the helmet. This one is meant to represent a falling scenario, so someone falling from a certain height and hitting their head on the ground. In that scenario in particular, what we're looking for the helmet is to be able to mitigate the risk of a severe traumatic brain injury from that fall.
The data still needs formal analysis, but initial reactions are positive.
Let's look at the linear accelerations. We have here an X. Let's zoom in. Yeah, we have a nice peak right there.
Yeah.
Let's check the velocity.
Good. So far, it just tells us that we have good data from this test, but it still needs to go through processing afterwards. So we're going to use these 6 kinematic curves, and we're going to process them using mathematical function and different things in order to infer a potential risk of injury from this type of impact condition. So good data. Next location.
That same head form and helmet are next used in a horizontal impact test, replicating an attack.
Now we're going to move to the low mass, high velocity type of impact, more representative of an attack scenario where someone would get struck on the head. We're getting ready to do a shot, so we're going to push back the piston all the way, and then we'll start ramping up the pressure in the tank underneath, and then fire it towards the helmet. We have a mass that's about 1 kilo at the end here. That's going to be accelerated towards the helmet, hitting it at roughly 10 meters per second. Firing in 3, 2, 1.
The helmet was hit in the range of 40 Gs of force this time, but they'll eventually ramp up to 80.
The conditions that we're reproducing here with the linear impactor are meant to reproduce like the upper bound of what someone could generate swinging an object.
Let's look at this one. This is in Y. We see 23 Gs.
Yeah, perfect.
But the hardest tests are yet to come. Next, it's off to the ballistics lab to test the helmet's resistance to projectiles like shrapnel. This metal piece will be shot at the helmet. And the small size is no accident. It's similar to about 80% of known hits taken by soldiers. Canadian soldiers have been injured and killed by shrapnel from improvised explosive devices and grenades.
We're running one of two types of ballistic tests that we do. First type is we essentially measure the ability of the helmet to stop a projectile from going through it. That's the first type. But today we're doing the second type of test, which is a behind helmet blunt trauma test. And that is a test where the helmet's going to stop the projectile, but we're interested in how much it deforms and the risk of that deformation to impact the head and cause injury. So we have an instrumented head form underneath that has load cells, force transducers, that are going to measure the force of that impact. As the helmet does its work, capture the projectile, deforms, and we just want to make sure that it's doing that in a safe way.
This test is another step in the team's effort to protect soldiers against traumatic brain injuries.
We're checking that the projectile was straight upon impact. That's important. We're checking that we got the velocity we wanted on the test. And then the high-speed imaging is just there to confirm that, yes, we have a good hit.
It's the final test before the team heads to a nearby military base for blast testing.
We can see it's been stretched quite a bit. That dynamic deformation must have been quite important there, but it's a nice shot. We got clean data.
The helmet is made up of layers to absorb some of the impact's energy. Exercises like this show how much is possible before it fails.
Part 2 of our helmet testing piece is coming up.
High-speed cameras, motion sensors, and explosives. They are all key for the blast test on this new Special Ops helmet we got exclusive access to. And this is where we are. A training facility on the Valcartier military base just north of Quebec City. It has a long history, founded just before the First World War. The test site allows operators to train on things like breaching doors with explosives, the perfect spot for today's exercise. The first test will see how much blast pressure the sensors in the head forms pick up without helmets.
Let's plug in the wires then. Rear.
Multiple sensor wires are fed far back to a trailer outside the blast area, a control room in the safe zone.
We're going to test if all the sensors are working properly, so we're going to tap a couple of times on the front. And we'll do left side, right side, do top. We'll test the back one. And then we'll shake the head form just to give a signal to the pressure sensors in the brain. And that's it.
We have decided primarily that we're going to do the detonation today.
After a safety briefing with the whole team, the test is ready for final setup. Cue the ammunition tech. He's prepping a detonation cord that will attach to a door for this test. In the field, specially trained operators breach to gain access. This door is being readied for the ammunition tech to do his work. For safety, everyone now has to move out as the explosives expert moves in. Attaching the detonation cord to the door. This will be a relatively small explosion, but enough to measure the effects on the sensors in the mannequin's head that the team needs. Everything is in place and at the ready.
So what's gonna happen, I'm gonna press this one, and I'm gonna start counting on after that.
2, 1.
Yeah, I think the right side is going to see more because of the reflection from the wall.
Yeah, right, because it's right next to it, yeah.
A good baseline for what's coming next. Simon and Benoit get their specialized helmets to see how they'll fare.
Okay, so we're going to need 2 helmets. We're going to do the helmet without accessories first. So we can either pick one of these maybe, because this one has the new liner. And I do this one on the right side,
On the right
head form.
The ear protection?
Yeah.
This exercise will find out how the helmets protect from a relatively close blast, like a breach.
We're doing these tests throughout the development program, and the reason why we're doing this throughout is because we want to evaluate if we're getting closer and closer to the performance that we really want, which is a lot of mitigation of that overpressure loading on the head. So we've done that early on. We've baselined what a current helmet can do. And now we're iterating different solutions, different helmet liner solutions, in order to improve on that performance. In this test, we're trying to simulate what we call the breaching event. So we have 2 operators, simulated by these mannequins and instrumented head form, and they want to gain entry into the room over there. So they're going to use explosive, so we call that explosive breaching, to gain entry, rapid entry into the room. As the explosive detonate, it's going to generate a blast wave in the environment. And that wave is a wave of overpressure, and it's going to reflect off the wall and in the environment, creating a very dynamic pressure field around the operators. And what we're interested in is to see how the helmet is able to mitigate the amount of overpressure that the head is exposed to. We just ran a test with the bare head forms, so with the head forms without a helmet on. So we looked at that data, we looked at the level of pressures that the head was experiencing, and now what we're looking for is to see if the helmet is able to lower these overpressure.
A fresh door, ready sensors, and the countdown is on.
2, 1. So Thomas is extracting all the peaks from the signals, putting that into a table, and then we're comparing values.
External sensor is really interesting because it's actually exposed to the air,
Yep.
but we're seeing a decrease nonetheless.
Yeah.
This is because of the geometry of the helmet itself.
Exactly.
So this is good. And on the sides this time we have the earmuffs as well. So I'm expecting something different. The gauges are still exposed, but there's muffs right around there.
Yeah, it seems like the earmuff alone.
So there would be a small increase, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the gator, and the gator is going to drop these numbers down.
It seems like a pretty simple solution, but a porous fabric gator plus goggles could have extraordinary results.
So which one's going to perform best, you think?
I would hope for this one to
one?
perform better. And this one is actually much easier to don than this one.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the Velcros.
Yeah.
So I would think this one would be more usable.
2 different types of gators will be used, both slightly different in the design and how they're attached. The goggles are an additional test layer.
This is a third configuration that we do today. We have a protective gator that is meant to manage how the overpressure is going to interact with the head. So the overpressure that comes from the explosive is a very sudden, fast rising overpressure. And that's what we want to mitigate. So we want the pressure, we're not going to get rid of the pressure, but we want it to sort of penetrate inside of the gator, but in our own terms, so on a longer period of time. Instead of aggressing the head very rapidly, it's going to be a more progressive loading, which helps us managing the effect of that loading.
3, 2, 1.
So adding the accessories seems to bring the levels back down to the baseline as far as internal head pressure is concerned.
Oh,
And even lower.
Yeah, quite a
Yeah.
reduction actually. Yeah. So that's good. That's what we want to see. So the helmet by itself does just a little bit, and then when you put the gator on, that's where the significant decrease happens.
So guys, you were saying it was almost back? Almost.
Yeah, compared. So it's
a 57% decrease in internal pressure once we put the helmet and the accessories on.
accessories on. Yeah.
With the bare condition, which is without any helmet.
This setup cut blast pressure on our fake operators by more than half.
All right, excellent. I think we're moving in the right direction. We don't have a final solution yet. It's a 2-phase development project. So the first phase was really focused on the protective aspect of the helmet. That phase ends next year. Science evolves, and we now know or have a feeling that exposure to low-level overpressure like this one, at the end of the day, may accumulate to something negative. And even though the jury's still out, we're not quite sure how much is too much. We're proactive in integrating these types of tests in our development program, ensuring that the helmet actually does provide mitigation. So even if we don't know what levels might be injurious at the end of the day, we're proactive in trying to mitigate exposure from the start.
Thanks so much for watching. Mercedes will be back hosting next season of the West Block. Meantime, we'll see you next week.